I will have a very brief, I hope, presentation, and I will cover the following topics. So I will have a bit of an overview of the MSCA and more specifically the postdoctoral fellowships. I will give you some pointers on what it's like to submit a proposal and what the most common errors and mistakes are, and then also give you a little bit of information about the evaluation process that we have in place. Then I will give you some statistics on how Belgium usually does in the postdoctoral fellowships, and then, as Nadej already mentioned, there will be time for a Q&A at the end of the session. So with that being said, I'll jump right into it. The MSCA in Horizon Europe, there is, as you can see, 6.6 billion euros set aside for that in the block that we're in now, from 2021 to 2027. There are 5 actions in total aimed at different kinds of researchers, so different stages of researchers and other staff involved in research. And what we're going to look at today are the postdoctoral fellowships, support to excellent postdoctoral researchers. Now, in detail, what does that mean? What we want to do with these postdoctoral fellowships is to enhance the creative and innovative potential of researchers with a PhD and help them acquire new skills via training and via international, interdisciplinary, and intersectoral mobility and exposure. I'll give you more objectives of this action in the next slide. As already mentioned, the call opened 3 days ago on the 23rd of April. And I do want to say that officially the call is open, but for those of you who have already gone and checked on the portal, you will have seen that the guide for applicants and the submission links specifically are not yet there. It's normal, you haven't missed anything. These are going to be added in the next couple of days, and there will be a call update posted on the portal when that happens. So you haven't missed anything. These forms are going to come very soon. What is fixed, however, is the call deadline. And this is a very important date to keep in mind. It's the 11th of September, and specifically 5 p.m. This date is not going to be postponed. So if you intend to submit a proposal, this is your date, 11th of September. Now, the budget for this year, as you can see, is more than 400 million euros. We made a significant increase this year, and with that, we hope to be able to fund about 30% more researchers this year than in past years. So it's a very, very high budget, and we can only recommend that you do try this year because, well, 30% more funding is always good to have. In addition to our overall budget increase, we have also modified the living and mobility allowances and the country coefficients. This is done to help accommodate the increased cost of living that we are all experiencing. So I will come back to these new rates in a next slide. But let's say in brief, the budget that we give to a researcher per month is about 1,000 euros more than in the past. So again, very interesting this year to participate. And also have to say, from the 1st of January 2024, the UK is again an associated country to Horizon Europe, meaning they may participate in our action as before, basically. So I promised to talk a bit about the objectives of the fellowship. So the first 3 points are aimed at researchers, at you. What we want is to give you an opportunity to gain more research skills, so technical skills, but also transferable skills. All that to try to improve the employability and the career prospects, both inside academia, but also outside of academia in the private sector. And an important aspect of that is to do this through this international, intersectoral, interdisciplinary experience, to expose yourself to new environments. And of course, linked to that, there is the hope that this will lead to enhanced networking and communication capacities with your peers and also with the general public. The next 3 points are aimed more at the organizations that will be hosting you. What we want is to increase the alignment of the working conditions for you, increase also the global attractiveness and visibility and reputation of participating organizations, and thereby Europe as a whole, and of course boost our R&I capacity. But keep in mind the first 3 points, they're the most relevant for you, what you can gain from having a postdoctoral fellowship. Now let's go into the modes of these global fellowships. There are 2 distinct modes to look at. There are either European fellowships or global fellowships. When you apply, you may only apply to one of these. You have to choose which you want. In European fellowships, I have to say this is the majority of our applicants. They will come from either Europe or another country and do their research for 12 to 24 months in a European member state or associated country. On the other hand, we have the global fellowships where you would leave for 12 to 24 months to a third country, so anywhere in the world, and then still come back for 12 months back to a member state or an associated country. So it's going out, coming back. So these are also longer. As you can see, they're about a year longer on average than the European fellowships. In both schemes, you can add a non-academic placement at the end of your project. That means you can go for up to 6 months to another organization in the private sector to apply what you have learned or to continue your research there. It's optional, you don't have to do it. I will come back to some of the modalities later on. But of course, if you do another 6 months, you have another 6 months of funding as well. Now I will talk a bit about the conditions. This is our eligibility conditions, as we call them, and they're very important because if you fail any of the eligibility conditions, your proposal might not be evaluated. So make sure that you have a good eye on this part. The participating organizations, they should be organizations in member states or associated countries. Member states, I think, is very clear. And for the associated countries, we have a list available. For these global fellowships that I mentioned earlier, of course, third countries, the US, Canada, South Africa, if you wish, or Taiwan, wherever you want to go, they are also allowed, obviously. Now, for yourself as researchers, the main criteria are that you have to have a PhD at the call deadline, or if you haven't been formally awarded your PhD yet, that you have at least had a successful defense prior to the call deadline. And this will be requested in these submission forms, the date. For European fellowships, we accept any nationality. For global fellowships, we only accept nationals or long-term residents of member states or associated countries. Also important is that you only have up to 8 years of research experience after having obtained your PhD. That's the general rule. However, of course, there are exceptions. If you had a career break, you became a parent, you did work outside of research, or you did research outside of Europe, all of these are exceptions that can be listed in your submission form to deduct from the 8 calendar years and still allow you to participate in our call. But for those falling in that category, make sure that you have carefully checked your dates and you can provide documents if ever requested. It's a very strict rule. And the final one is the mobility rule. So that means that wherever you want to go to do your fellowship, you cannot have been there already for more than a year in the past 3 years. So this might look a bit complicated, so I will repeat again. You cannot have been in your destination, your proposed destination, for more than a year in the past 3 years before the call deadline. Again, we are very strict on that. There is also a little bit of a note at the bottom. If you intend to do research that is covered by Euratom, so nuclear research, this is allowed, can be covered via the postdoctoral fellowships, but there are a little bit of an additional set of more restrictive eligibility criteria that you can see here. and that are also detailed in our work program for those that are interested in that. Duration I've already covered in the first slide, 12 to 24 months or 24 to 36 months. We have an option to allow a secondment. You can go anywhere worldwide in any sector for up to a third of your total duration or a third of the outgoing phase for global fellowships. And you may also undertake this optional additional placement in the non-academic sector for up to 6 months. If you're interested in either, we do recommend that you read the guide for applicants and the links that I will provide at the end for more details. There are some very important distinctions and restrictions on this. There are some other specifics that I have to address. So resubmissions, that means if you've submitted already a proposal in the past and you were not granted a postdoctoral fellowship, you may of course submit it again in this year's call. However, only if you scored more than 70. If you did not score more than 70, you may not submit it this year, but again in 2025. So for those of you that are in this situation, please keep this in mind. I already indicated about the UK being associated again, so welcome back UK. And now a little bit extra on the non-academic placements. We are aware that the definition of what is non-academic can be a little bit confusing, and we actually define it as a sort of a double negative. So we know what the academic sector is. So that would be research organizations, higher education entities, and international organizations. Anything that is not in the academic sector is considered the non-academic sector. However, this is always going to be subject to validation by my colleagues from REA and further verification. So if you intend to apply for a non-academic placement, try to find out exactly if your entity qualifies. Obviously, if it's University of something, it's definitely not going to qualify. If it's IBM, it definitely will qualify. So be careful to make sure that it's non-academic. Now, as promised, a few words about the funding levels, which are new for this year. We have contributions for the researcher and contributions for the host organization. For the host organization, it's fairly stable. This is for covering their overheads, and it's about 1,650 euros total. What is more relevant for you is the living allowance and the mobility and family allowances. So we increased the living allowance from about 5,000 to now 5,990 euros. This is a gross amount. This is always going to be subject to tax and deductions. Our mobility allowance, which you will always receive as well, increased from 600 to 710 euros. And if you have a family, so either you're married in an equivalent relation, you have children or dependents, you have the right to an additional family allowance of 660 euros per month. Now, what is important is that the living allowance is corrected by a coefficient, because living in the UK, for instance, is more expensive than living in Serbia. So there is an adjustment made with a coefficient, which is available in the work program. For Belgium, there is no specific coefficient, it's 100%. But for those of you intending to apply to a Belgian institution, this, what you see on the screen, is the allowances that you will get, gross allowances. Now that we've covered the modalities of what is a postdoctoral fellowships, I will give you a bit of information about what it's like to submit a proposal. Proposals are submitted only via the portal, so therefore electronically. I provided the link later on in the presentation, but you can also find it as shown here with the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions or postdoctoral fellowships. Any application will be in two parts. You will have part A, application forms, which is something you will fill out online. Take your time to fill it out properly, because if there are errors, they will lead to issues with your evaluation. So take your time to fill out this electronic form on time. The second part is the technical description of your research proposal, the part B. And this is the core of your proposal, what you aim to do. Important note on that, we provide a template for you to use. Use the template because it has guidance inside, but make sure that you use the template for the right call, so the postdoctoral fellowships, and for the right year. If you use a template from a previous year, this could be very detrimental to your proposal. There are different guidance, sometimes different criteria. So make sure to use the Part B for the 2024 postdoctoral fellowships call. This is very important. Then let's go in a bit of detail about what the Part A and B contain. So Part A, as I said, it has structured data, acronym, a title, choose something meaningful for you, but also for evaluators. You have to choose a scientific area. There are 8 different areas available, and up to 5 keywords, descriptors, 3 of which are mandatory. And out of these 3, 2 are going to be linked to the panel you chose in the step above. The others can come from any other panel because, like I said, we do value this interdisciplinarity. You can also add free keywords, and you have to provide an abstract. Then, also in this Part A, we will ask you for some personal information, the date of your PhD or the successful defense, and where you have lived in the past 5 years for eligibility purposes. For the beneficiary, we will want a participant information code, a PIC of the beneficiary. For global fellowships, also the host in the 3rd country, and also if you intend to do a non-academic placement. These PICs, your host organization will provide it for you when you reach out to them. Furthermore, there will be some information requests on publications, existing projects, and you will be asked to make a self-assessment on ethical impact of your research. There is guidance available on that, by the way, because it's an extensive list. The core of the proposal are 2 documents, a Part B1 and a Part B2. Part B1 contains the technical description of your work and has a very strict limit of 10 pages. Any more than that, they will be blanked out and they're not available to the evaluators. Minimum font size is 11 points, standard spacing, single line spacing as well. And this is also including text and tables. So keep that in mind, size 11 for font. And like I said, use the template we provided. It will help you tremendously. Part B2 doesn't have a formal page limit and contains additional information. So your CV, information on the organization, and if applicable, if you do a global fellowship, a letter of commitment from the 3rd country host. Again, details on what should be where are included in our Part B's template that's available in the call page and in the submission forms if you go there. Common errors. Missing the call deadline is a very common one, unfortunately, and this is something we cannot do. The call will close automatically 5 o'clock on the 11th of September. We also see sometimes submitting under the wrong type of action, mixing up host organization, 3rd country host, or even current organization. Not providing all the information is also something we see often. Not respecting eligibility requirements. Very common as well is exceeding this page limit of 10 pages for the Part B1. There are also common errors on secondments and non-academic placements. So if you intend to do either a secondment or a non-academic placement, make sure that you have followed the guidance that we provide in the guide for applicants. It's explained what is what and what you need to put where. Follow that exactly, and you will not have any issue with that. And also another big one is smaller than allowed font. This will make it very difficult for the evaluators to read your proposal, and that is not beneficial at all. I provided a link as well to a useful resource. We compiled a big document explaining all these errors, and that will help you avoiding them. Now, very few words about our evaluation. It's a large-scale evaluation. We have up to 10,000 proposals a year. It's peer-reviewed, so 3 experts minimum will look at your proposal, experts in your field. You may choose, of course, any discipline, any research program, anything you want to do. Our experts that look at it are going to be balanced with experience, nationality, gender, age, sector, complementarity as well. I list you the 8 scientific panels, and it's a single stage evaluation with no, once we provide the assessment, that's it. There is no second evaluation to follow. This is a very important slide to keep in mind as well. It's going to be embedded in all our documents, including the template part B, and these are the evaluation criteria. This is what the experts will be looking at. So they will look at the quality of your research, the innovation aspects, the methodology you propose, the supervision, your training plan, your experience, your existing competences, how this will impact your career. So these criteria are actually the core of what you will be addressing in your part B1. Make sure that you do it very detailed, basically. This is very important. Like I said, the evaluation process as a whole, minimum 3 experts. They make their own assessment, then discuss, and then that leads to an evaluation summary report which you will receive. So be assured it's not just one person. At least 3 people are going to read your proposal and assess it. And there will be complementarity in their expertise so that everything in your proposal is going to be covered by experts. Then the proposals will be ranked by scientific panel and action with a separate ranking for European and global fellowships. And we do this to ensure fairness because we only received maybe a few proposals in economic sciences and a lot in life sciences. We have allocated budgets for action and panel. Those of you scoring more than 85% will receive a seal of excellence. And those of you scoring less than 70 may unfortunately not submit in 2025. Again, call planning. Like I said before, call opened. Forms will be published very soon, and the call deadline is the 11th of September. For you, that means that the outcome of your application will come to you in, let's say, February 2025. So before that date, we are still working on finalizing everything, but in February, you can receive your outcome. And those of you that are selected for funding will then be able to start the project between March and April 2025, all the way through September 2026. And on this slide, I will not go through it in detail, are all useful links. Have a look, they're very good, especially the 2 highlighted in yellow. Now, very, very quickly, a few words on Belgium. So as you can see, Belgium tends to send in a lot of applications, and more importantly, is always very successful as well. I mean, generally in line with the overall success rate for the call, and last year, significantly higher even, as you can see. Then when it comes to the topics that are covered, Belgium hosts have everything. All 8 scientific panels are nicely represented. So we do a lot of varied research here, I would say. And finally, where do Belgian nationals go? As you can see, we go all over Europe. We tend to stick a little bit in Western Europe, but we do go everywhere, which is very nice to see as well.